Hello, this is Lydia, the lifestyle coach, and so fun to see you guys on our live feed today. Hello and welcome. And what we are doing here is ending eating disorders using nothing but your brain. And eating disorders can manifest in a few different ways, many different ways, but I'll just throw out some examples for you guys because sometimes we wonder like, oh, okay, well, is this an eating disorder? Is this something else? What is my struggle? And there's so much information out there. There's a lot of bad information out there. And so it's really hard to know because, I mean, you could attribute it to so many things and it manifests in so many different ways. So what you want to really boil it down to is if you had the same relationship with food today that you do today for the rest of your life, if it never changed, if you continued to eat this way, how you have been eating, how you are eating right now, and zoom out a little bit, because sometimes we're like, oh, I started this new thing and I have this temporary relief, and then it all comes crashing down again. If you've been through multiple cycles of that, like zoom out and just say, you know, in this past while, if this persists for the rest of my life, does that serve you? Is that something that you're going to be proud of at the end of your life? So sometimes this can be manifested as binging. Sometimes it can be bulimia. So that means a compensating behavior. So maybe you're binging or you're overeating and then you're over exercising to try to compensate, or you're restrictive dieting to try to compensate, or you're throwing up your food to try to compensate. So that's that cycle of bulimia. It's overeating. It's that yo-yo dieting pattern that loops us in for so long, you know, 40, 50 years of our lives. This is the food obsession as well. So we've had women that are free and done, and when they came to us, they weren't binging anymore, but they were thinking about food all day long. They were worrying about food all day long. They were obsessing about food all day long. And the same thing can happen with your body. You're just thinking about it and obsessed with it, and it takes up so much time and mental energy, and you can't focus on things or be present with the people that you care about because you're just so worried about your body or about food. So this happens on multiple different levels, but the good news is that it's the same way that we break it. Whatever that relationship with food is that you're in a loop with, it's the same tools and process to end it permanently for the rest of your life. And we're going to talk about something that happens that we have seen come up multiple times, where people are trying to fix this by escaping from it. And so it starts out like this. So you're in a place where you're noticing that you're not okay with how things are going with food. Like you're really scared maybe for your health. Maybe you're worried about what this is doing to your body or your weight. Maybe you're worried about what this is doing to you psychologically. Like there are these worries that come up of like, I can't keep going eating the way that I am. And then you start noticing there's a connection like, oh wait, I'm always overeating or I'm binging at night. Oh, okay. But you know what? Like I was stressed the other day and I totally turned to food. Man, I had a hard day at work and I came right home, or I stopped at the store and I got binge food, and that was it. And because we are meaning-making machines as humans, then we start connecting all these dots of like, oh, it's this and it's that. And those things start stacking up. And so the logical next step is, well, as long as I don't get stressed, then I'll be able to stop binging, because it's the stress that's leading to the binging. Oh, okay, that's it. As long as I don't have confrontations at work, then I won't binge, because it's when I get stressed at work that I come home and binge. Oh, okay, as long as I work out every single day, because that makes me feel better. And there was that one time that I worked out and I didn't binge. Okay, awesome. And so you just start stacking all of these things up of the reasons why you think that you're binging. And then that list gets longer and longer because you realize like, yeah, I mean, I binge when I'm sad, but it's so weird. I also binge when I'm happy. Like I was really excited the other day and I just like kept eating and eating and eating. What's that all about? Okay, well, I can't get too sad and I can't get too happy. And then I can't be in the circumstances that create too much sadness or too much happiness. And so we start tracking, right? We start saying like, okay, like there's too many now. So I need to start tracking. I need to start making a list of everything that is happening that leads to a binge, because as long as I know what's leading to a binge, as long as I know what external circumstances are leading to that, well then, okay, that's going to make all the difference. Okay, well, I can't experience these emotions and I can't have this food. I can't have sugar. Man, if I have one bite of sugar, then I just go off the rails. So I'm just not going to have sugar. Okay, I can't be around these people. Well, you know, it's the feeling of loneliness in the evening. Like I don't have a partner and I feel really lonely, so I need to make sure that I'm, you know, distracted in the evening. And our lives get more and more complex as we try to track all the triggers. I'm going to put that in quotes because triggers are not a real thing. You can watch another video on that. When you try to track all of the triggers of what leads to binging, and then you try to create your whole life with circumstances that keep you from being triggered that way, and your life gets smaller and smaller and smaller because you've got to stay away from all the things that cause you stress, or the things that make you too excited, or maybe your work is stressful, so then maybe you need to even change jobs, or I really can't be around those family members anymore. And eventually you get to a point where you're just done. Like you just want a fresh start. It's like your whole life is a trigger. It's like you wake up in the morning and you're instantly triggered by where you're at and who you see and the job you have to go to and the people you have to be around and your relationships and the food in the cupboard and the fast food place that you drive by on the way home. And it just feels like too much. And that you're just walking in this minefield of, at any time, there's one of these things that's on your ever-growing list that's going to throw you into the binge again. And so you do the ultimate thing, the clean sweep. Let's just get rid of all of the triggers. Let's have a completely fresh start. Let's move. Let's go to a whole new place. And so you spend $5,000, $10,000 and you pack everything up and you find a new job and you go to a place where you don't know anyone. You just say, all right, I'm just going to wipe out all the triggers. I'm going to have a fresh start. Everything's going to be better. I'm just going to be able to start over. Whatever happened, whatever lines got crossed, whatever started this all, it's just going to be wiped out because I'm going to be in a whole new place with all new people. I'm going to start over as a new me. I'm going to move. And I'm going to leave my eating disorder behind. That's going to be my answer. And yeah, it's hard to leave all of this, but it's way harder to live with this eating disorder for the rest of my life. Because now I have diabetes, and now I've replaced teeth, and things just continue to get worse. Now I can't be in a relationship because I feel so awful about myself. I don't want anyone close to me. If I ever want a relationship, I've really got to get rid of this. And so you move. And you leave all that behind and you have a fresh start. And we have seen this happen so many times. We've seen women who have moved countries. We've seen women who have moved cross country multiple times, who have tried to get rid of all of those triggers and all of the circumstances and change every single circumstance of life so that you can finally just be free. And the problem is that when you remove all of the external circumstances, and when you do something extreme, like moving across the country, what you find out is that it wasn't about any of that. Because you're still you, and you take it all along with you. And it comes with you across the world, and it comes with you across the country, and you might feel better for a second. And you might be really excited because you have this fresh start and everything's going to be different. And then even though everything's different, the stores around you are different, and you've got a whole new career, and you're meeting new people, there's one night when you just get super confused because you did it again. You did all that to escape your eating disorder, and you realize that you've brought it with you. And you look in horror and realize that there's only one variable left, and it's you. And it creates this feeling of, I'm really broken. Because look at how much I've changed, but I'm the one who's broken. So then, in addition to changing all of the circumstances, now you have a whole nother layer of trying to change the you in those circumstances. So now, okay, well, work makes me stressed, but it's about like me. And so, okay, like I've really got to be able to go to work, but then not get stressed because it's work stress. And then you start on this never ending journey of like, okay, well, I've got to be a person who doesn't get stressed. And you know what? My family gives me anxiety. So I've got to be able to be around them. And then, I've got to be able to not have anxiety around them. And so because you're depending on your external circumstances and you try to wipe all those out, and then once all the external circumstances are changed, well, then you feel like you have to change you in all those external circumstances. And it just turns into, it's like a hydra when you cut off one head and two come up, and it gets more and more complex. And with so many women that are now free, that we have helped from 35, 45 years of an eating disorder to in a handful of weeks being able to be done for the rest of their lives. This was the key, is that you've got to stop the thing that makes it worse. As long as you think it is about external circumstances or about how you feel about those external circumstances, you can never be free, because your life is always going to be changing. And you're always going to have some external circumstance, and you're always going to have the way that you relate to it in whatever circumstances those are. So the solution is that you cannot depend on those external circumstances or changing those to fix this problem. That can never be it, because that always leaves you powerless, because there's always going to be something that happens that creates stress, or something that happens that creates loneliness, or something that happens that creates happiness. And you also can't depend on how you feel about those external circumstances. Because if you're thinking all the circumstances and all the ways you feel about them are triggers, then you're always going to be lost. And those triggers are always going to keep growing, because you're going to assign some meaning. So it's no matter what the circumstance is, it's about breaking the pattern in the moment. That is the only thing that it takes. Everything that we focus on, when people come to us and they say, you know what, I'm hopeless, there's no way I'll ever be done, I've been doing this for 50 years, I've done everything else, I've worked through all my triggers, I've gone to 25 years of therapy. The reason that we have had women after 50 years in 6 weeks be done for the rest of their lives is because they're not looking at any external circumstance for their freedom, or to change anything about how they feel for their freedom. It's about breaking the pattern and knowing how to do that in the moment. And that is why we talk about permanent freedom with what we do. And that's why our clients can be free for the rest of their lives, because it doesn't matter what happens for the rest of your life if you know how to break the pattern and break the habit of when things happen, then you binge. Because that was always a false connection in the first place. Triggers are one of the biggest, most damaging myths in the eating disorder world. And as soon as people are able to unlearn that and just break the habit and break the pattern, they can be free. So a couple of examples, like, we had a woman who, she had for 25 years been a binge eater. She said, this took me away from my children and all of their childhood. And now I refuse to let this take me away from my grandchildren and not being able to be present with them. So after 25 years of her feeling like she was completely broken and hopeless and that nothing would ever change or end, in about the 4-week mark, she was completely done. She had no compulsion to binge. If she felt like binging, she knew how to just not feel like binging, because we showed her exactly how to do that in her own life. In fact, in week 1, we showed her exactly how to do that. And by week 4, she had enough practice that she was just done. Now, she was somebody who was older. She was somebody who had had a lot of life behind her. And it was actually like years after she graduated and she had been free that she wrote us a message, and she said, you know what, I actually, because of some health issues that I'd had building up over decades, I was diagnosed with cancer. She said, that would have been what I would have thought of as a trigger in the past. And when I was trying to heal from cancer, this would have been something that I would have just sabotaged whatever was happening, because I would have been so stressed that I would have been binging. She said, I don't know how I could have gotten through this cancer. And she got treatment, and now she's on the other side of it. But the thing is that that's an extreme thing to happen in life. Like, getting cancer is a really hard thing. But there was no connection between that and binging anymore. She said, I don't know how I would have gotten through it if I was binging the whole time. We had another woman that she came to us, and in about the 6-week mark for her, she was free. She had been struggling for about 17 years with bulimia. And she had a family member die, her father that she was very close to. She had him pass away when she was pretty freshly graduated from the program. And the fact that she was free from this, she said, I do not know how I would have dealt with that sorrow without knowing how to navigate my brain and end this. She's like, I would have made everything worse by having an eating disorder and having to deal with mourning and grief. So the thing is that permanent freedom means that it doesn't matter what happens in your life, and it doesn't matter how you feel about it. Nothing can make you binge. Nothing can make you go back into the cycle, because you know exactly how to end the cycle in the moment. And then with repetition of that, then you've ended it for the rest of your life, and your desires change. You don't even want to go back to that. That's what that permanent freedom is. And so I wanted to bring this up because this is something that comes up so often, this false idea of like, okay, well, I've just got to change everything and move across the country or change my circumstances because that's going to be the answer. If it was the answer, then it would have worked when you did it. The answer is to be able to be done and end the pattern. Okay, awesome. All right, so we've got some comments here. Thank you guys for your wonderful comments. All right, so somebody is commenting. Thank you guys so much. And, I really appreciate our community and your feedback here, because a lot of times in your comments, there's either something that is just a beautiful thing of you sharing your circumstance, and that just uplifts everybody to be part of this community and for us to know that we're not alone in this. That's a huge piece of it. And then the other piece of it is a lot of times in your comments, there's just, something that you've learned that is just false. And I want to be able to help you guys with that as well. Because one thing that's really damaging about eating disorders and all of the information out there is almost every approach. Like it's insane. There are so many problems that there are lots of ways to fix them. And one issue with eating disorders is that there are so many ways to treat them, I'm going to put that in quotes, that make it worse. It's like the very thing that created the eating disorder. It's literally you drank poison and it made you sick, and then the medication is the same poison, and then you get confused why you're sicker afterwards. So this is why it's really important for us to all bring the stuff that we have in our head to the table so that we can work through that. Okay, yeah, so this comment, I really appreciate this, Kelsey, is she's talking about you've got to learn how to get through the triggers, learn to live with them without turning to unhealthy coping mechanisms, and that can be the hardest part for a lot of us. So I hope that you're open to some coaching here, because the idea that binging is a coping mechanism is the idea that, well, then I need the binging to cope. I remember standing in front of the pantry and being so incredibly sad. I had some very, very hard things happening in my life when I had an eating disorder. And I was standing in front of the pantry thinking you know what? It would be so much better to just cope with this sadness by binging than it would be to be in this sadness. I mean, it's better to binge than be so sad. It was a false connection. Oh, well, I've got to cope by binging. So then it piles up into this idea of but if I don't binge anymore, then I'll have no way to cope. I've got to have a whole nother set of other coping mechanisms because the way I cope is binging, and I'll just be lost without it. So do you see how many obstacles that puts in your way of okay, well, I've got to have other coping mechanisms, and until I do, I have to keep binging. Let's try this on. What if you knew in the moment how to just not binge? You would just not have to deal with all of the horrible feelings of binging. You would be able to deal directly with your problem without dealing with two problems. Well, now I have this problem that I have to cope with, and now I binged. You have coping mechanisms. You cope with everything else in your life. You may feel and have this false connection of binging is something that is, oh, okay, well, holding, being back because, oh, well, or rather, I'm held back from binging or I'm held back from getting done with binging because I have to do this other thing first. What if the first thing you needed to do was end the binge eating? Kelsey, that's so awesome. You're exactly right. Yeah. We put all these false things in the way. I've got to get rid of my triggers. I've got to have other coping mechanisms. I've got to sort through my trauma. What if you didn't? And the sad thing is that we see women after woman come to us where it's they've tried that other stuff for 25 years. We had a woman come to us, she said, I've been in 25 years of therapy and I've sorted through all my past trauma and I have great coping mechanisms. I'm doing awesome. And I've gained 100 pounds and there is nothing else to talk about. I proved that it doesn't work. And it was, I can't remember the 4 or 6 week mark for her, but she was done. She was done. So the thing is that when you start putting all these other things in your way, it will keep you in an eating disorder forever. It's about being done with it. All right, and just, wonderful comment here. I stopped binging and gained weight, and now I can't accept my body. I'm not happy. I always have anxiety. This is tough to accept my new body. Hey, totally get that. And that can be a really rough thing. So I would go ahead and I would look at our series about debunking diets at lydiavideo.com. That would be a great one, because a lot of times we're like, oh, okay, well, you know what? We've got to end our eating disorder. Oh, but now we're gaining weight. Well, now we can't accept our body. Well, now we need to do something about it and go back to restricting. And it actually creates a worse problem. So I understand, like, it's hard to accept a body that's changing. So we have some, really great stuff for that. And if you guys want help with any of this, right? Like, I'm not saying that the solution is just an easy thing. If this was something where I could give you the solution for you right here on this video, I'd do it. I would just end eating disorders by giving you guys that key of information. But it's never about more information. It's about the transformation of understanding exactly what's happening with your pattern that you need to break, and then being able to know exactly how to end that pattern for your life. And that's why we're here to help you guys do that. You can have a free session with us where we will walk you through getting the foundation of your freedom, so you know exactly what to do to be done. So you can go to lifewithlydia.com/apply. It's lifewithlydia.com/apply, and you can snag a free session with us. And we will help you get that foundation of freedom and know exactly what's happening with your specific cycle of binge eating, and exactly what freedom looks like and means for you on the other side. And that's a very customized thing. And so we're willing to spend that time with you guys. We get booked up very quickly. So if this is something you are serious about fixing, then pop over there to lifewithlydia.com/apply, and we're happy to help you there. So again, this is Lydia, the lifestyle coach, signing off. Mwah. Bye, guys.